take some of the things that Stu says with a grain of salt. I've worked with Stu now going back to 2009, I think. Saying he just found out that I'm a BYU fan is kind of an understatement. What he means to say is that we are rivals. He went to the University of Utah, I went to BYU. And what's ironic is that until this past Saturday, 2009, when Stu and I first started working together, was the last time BYU beat his team. So I'm very happy about this. But we have a lot of things to talk about tonight. Usually we take this opportunity on this call for newcomers. You've joined the company or are considering joining the company. And we talk a little bit in more detail about what Actives is all about, why we started it, what we've got going on, where we see us going in the future. We'll have a little bit of time for question and answers. I do like to use a PowerPoint for people who have not seen some of the things that we've talked about in the past, or when they were first introduced to the company, may not have had some of these details available. It will be a review for some who have seen this. I have added a couple of other slides that I think are pertinent and kind of interesting to talk about. So I'm going to jump right into it, and we'll get going. So I think that when we talk about Actives, we chose that name for a very, very specific purpose. We felt like there was a way to activate all aspects of our lives. As Ryan Thompson, my partner, and Angie, Stu, and others of us got together in the very early days, we knew that we would draw upon our previous experiences where we've had some real successes. We would draw upon some things that we wish we would have done better, and create something that had some characteristics that other companies had, but in some ways were very unique. That starts with our products. We have cutting edge epigenetic products that simply mean that these products act upon the very genes in our bodies to make them really operate the way they're supposed to. We talk about upregulating and usually in regards to gene expression, but I think actually a better term, and one that you might want to take note of, is the word modulate. Modulate actually means to put in the proper level. And so what our products do, our epigenetic products do, they modulate genes. There are some genes that we want to turn up at certain times, like inflammatory genes. There are some of those very same genes that we want to turn down. And these products can operate within the signals given by the body to have those genes be tuned to the optimum levels for health. And that's basically what we're all about. We are a omni-channel company. You might think we're a network marketing company. Yes, we are. You might think we're a direct sales company. Yes, we are. But we also wanted to do something different. We knew that some people would never, maybe some of you have encountered this, when you tell people you're with a direct marketing company, sometimes they go, oh, no way. I'm not going to do anything with the direct marketing company, with an MLM company. We know all about those guys. They're all going to jail. They're all selling snake oil. They're all doing this. They're all doing that. And you could hit them over the head with reams of research about our products, and it wouldn't change their mind. And so we want those people also, well, most of them. We may not want all of them, but we want to have most of them have the opportunities to have the benefits of the products. So there are things that we allow in terms of having the products available in other channels so that those people can take advantage of it as well. We started in November of 2017 in Mexico. We've generated, well, all of us, together with your activities, have generated tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and we'll more than double again in size by the end of this year. We're taking advantage of some of the strategies we've used in the past at other companies and doing other things. But the bottom line is, this is not just about us. We're in this together. And we don't grow unless you grow. And when you grow, we grow. And this, we'll talk a little bit about the industry. I would describe it as two different kinds of, well, really three different kinds of industry. One is supplement sales, which, as you see, is a $165 billion revenue business. Global direct sales are over 200 billion. US supplement sales drive that. So we're both in the direct selling industry and the supplement industry and in the wellness and beauty aspect of that, because our products are all about wellness and beauty. You hear about the gig economy. People are looking for a side hustle. Did you know that side hustle is like one of the most searched for terms on Google? People are looking for something. And I think that's what's really driving. It was really fun in the, just a few minutes ago, talking and hearing people talk about their experience in introducing it to other people. Some people find it easy. Some people find it a little bit difficult to get outside themselves and introduce the product and the opportunity. But I can tell you that if you assume that the person you're talking to needs the benefits of the products and the benefits of the opportunity, then you'll be miles ahead, and your own belief in what you're presenting to them will go up as well. Look at this: 50% of consumers purchase from a direct selling representative annually. There's a lot of people out there, and you're smack dab in the middle of a tremendous industry with great timing. Now, who are we? Well, we are all bald-headed guys that are trying to look for the fountain of youth and hair products. Okay, maybe not all of us. Angie, as you can see, has great hair. Stu's got pretty good hair too. What I can say is that in our eternal search for a hair and height formula for Stu and me, we have struck out. But along the way, we found out some really great products and have had some great experiences as well. And some of those experiences have been together, where we have created fast-growing, strong, powerful companies that really created really new ways of doing things. We introduced to the masses really the whole idea of NRF2 activation. We've taught tens of millions of people what oxidative stress is, what antioxidant enzymes are, and really pioneered that and introduced the world to a man named Dr. McCord, who was very well known in his specific area of scientific research, which was free radical biology. But beyond that, he wasn't too well known. And we made him a rock star as we introduced him to a world that talked about, that all of a sudden was acting like little mini scientists, where people all of a sudden knew about oxidative stress and those types of things. We got together and we said, listen, we think there's some things that we can do a little bit different. We have an opportunity in a world that's searching for ways to activate their health, activate their wealth, activate and improve their social interactions, and to just take control of their lives in every aspect. We have an opportunity to play a role in that, to provide a vehicle, to provide kind of additional tools, so to speak, for people to accomplish their goals, whatever they may be, large or small, personal or entirely outward directed to others. And we have the opportunity to do that in a way that nobody's ever done before. So we started in Mexico. We'll be celebrating our 4th year anniversary at a big event in Mexico City in November. And along the way, we've introduced it into other markets as well. The US is now the 2nd largest market, despite the fact that it's years behind, and despite the fact that the COVID pandemic has slowed things down at times and things like that, that the timing couldn't be better. Aren't you glad that you have the opportunity to talk about products that every single person needs? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. With a fast-growing company in an industry that's growing like crazy, and with a brand that's just barely getting started, but is unique in terms of what its offerings represent, as opposed to just trying to tell a same old story that sounds very similar to what other people are doing out there. That's not us. Well, they say that you are judged by the company that you keep, and we're keeping some pretty good company. If you look at our advisory board, Dr. Joe Maroon, Vice Admiral Matt Winterer, whom some of you heard just this past Saturday. Wasn't that awesome, by the way, when he was talking about landing on an aircraft carrier at night in the pitch black on an aircraft carrier that's pitching in the waves, and then all of a sudden his cockpit light comes on that he's on fire and he has to decide what to do. Can you imagine? Aren't you glad that a guy like that, who can keep his cool literally under fire, has chosen to align himself with a company like ours? I can tell you what, When Karen Toth first introduced us to Admiral Matt Winter, he was still a sitting admiral. And he was at that time head of the Joint Task Force on the F-35 fighter plane. And he was very interested in us. As I mentioned on Saturday, for those of you that were able to attend, he knew about oxidative stress. He knew about NRF2 activation because he had also previously been the head of the Office of Naval Research, where when many of us were at LifeVantage before, we actually had studies conducted by the Navy on our products, and during the time that Admiral Winter was the head of that research division, and it actually amazed me that he knew what we were talking about. And when he found out that we had the latest iteration of NRF2 activating products, in his mind, it was very much like having the F-35 fighter plane, which was a vast improvement over fighter jets that had been used 20 years before. He's like, why wouldn't you use the latest, greatest technology as opposed to something that was represented the cutting edge of technology 10 years ago or 15 years ago? We had to be vetted by the Navy before they would allow him to join us. Actually, that was the easy part. It was a pain because we had to provide a lot of details and all that kind of stuff, but it was easy because we were transparent and we had a lot of good things to say. We have Dr. Brett Earl, who many of you have heard talk about our products. He loves to use the terms foundational molecules in describing butyric acid and describing things like tetrahydrocurcumin, which we'll talk about in a minute. You've heard of Dr. Joe Maroon, a world-renowned neuroscientist and neurosurgeon with over 30,000 neurosurgeries in his background. He's the head team doctor for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's the head medical director for WWE Wrestling. He is a triathlete that competes in Ironman competitions. He's amazing, and he's the one that, and maybe sometimes this quote gets bent out of shape or misapplied, but he's the one, when we first talked about butyric acid, he said, I know all about butyric acid. I know all about its effect upon the brain. I know all about its effect upon gut health. And I also know all about its disgusting taste and smell. And we always thought that if we could deal with that, we would have the holy grail of supplements. And then he said, how did you do it? And I said, well, again, I didn't do it. Al Zapp from Tesseract Medical, a genius, came up with the way to deal with those issues. And now we have really the only bioavailable form of butyric acid that will help heal the gut, that will help create new brain cells and do all those wonderful things that butyric acid has been shown to do. Sinead Irwin is also a functional medicine specialist who many of you have heard talk about the effects of Arrow. And on that note, by the way, I'm going to date myself, but look this up. Some of you might be familiar with this. I was thinking about Arrow the other day, and we hear about Arrow as a wonderful product. Well, all of our products, we get testimonials from all the time. I'm always amazed by the different things I hear about some of these things. I hear about how some people like their Arrow hot, some people like it cold, some people take it for the energy, some people are experiencing tremendous weight loss, some people are noticing increased mental acuity and being able to remember things better, think that they're a little sharper. And it all reminded me of a song that dates back to the 70s by a guy named Nilsson. And the name of that song was Me and My Arrow. And I'm thinking, you know what, we ought to kind of co-opt that song and come up with a whole campaign about Me and My Arrow. Stu and Angie are like thinking, David, don't quit your day job, leave the marketing stuff to the professionals. But I like the idea of Me and My Arrow because all of us have our own particular stories about it. Dr. Daniel Hernandez is a peer, a longtime friend and colleague of Dr. Joe McCord, and is also a world-renowned expert on free radical biology and oxidative stress, NRF2 activation. Dr. Rish Patel is not only a great golfer, I should just take a minute and say that in my partner and investor base for the company, we actually have tremendous golfers. In fact, one of our investors just recently won the U.S. Senior Amateur Championship and he's very well known. We have some professional golfers who are also investors in the company, and it's just kind of an odd coincidence. And we can't guarantee that our products are going to make someone a better golfer. In fact, I can tell you from personal experience that they haven't necessarily made me a better golfer. But I can tell you that, like Dr. Rish Patel, who, despite being a very good golfer, still gets the pains and aches that come along with golfing frequently. And as a pain management specialist, he knows a lot about aches and pains. And he himself takes Optimend and our other products and has a great personal testimonial about that. Although some of you have heard me say this before, my favorite testimonial that Dr. Patel talks about has nothing to do with his specialty in pain management. It has everything to do with Amora, our skincare products, and how people have told him that how much younger he looks and what's he been doing to look better. And he says, well, I guess it was Amora. It kind of cracks me up. Jeff Boast is a colleague of Dr. Maroon's and has assisted in over those 30,000 surgeries I mentioned. He's a professor that in terms of an instructor at the University of Pittsburgh Medical School. And Richard Jones is not only a friend of the company, but is a media representative that has helped us get our products featured on various ABC network news telecasts. And we look for that to continue going forward. Some of you know about, all of you know about the products to some degree. They are unbelievable. And frankly, in all of my time with a number of companies over the years, big and small, fast growing and slower growing, I've never had a company in which I had products that I didn't believe in. But I can also tell you that I've never had products that have this level of scientific validation. We have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the products we have, whether it be the original product we introduced into Mexico, Genomics, cutting edge gene therapy, free radical biology therapy that acts upon every single cell in your body. It opens the door to Nrf2 activation so that your mitochondria, so that your DNA can be acted upon by this powerful transcription factor that is associated with modulating, again, making sure that these genes are at the right levels. Think of it as kind of a dimmer switch. You don't want a dimmer switch for a light stuck on high, and you don't want it stuck on low. You want to put at the right exact level to illuminate the area in which you are, right? And that's what we do. The Genomics modulates over 1,000 what are called survival genes. I actually had a question presented to me about this today, about another product. How does Genomics, how does Nrf2 compare to something called NAD, which is an interesting product. We produce NAD in our bodies, and NAD acts upon our mitochondria, and it's important to activate something called sirtuins, which are basically coenzymes. I'm sorry, I'm kind of a geek when it comes to this, and Stu's like, stop, you're already talking too much about technical stuff. But these coenzymes work with enzymes to help the body, to help the mitochondria function. It produces energy in the cell, and it's also tied to anti-aging. And so Trish Albertson asked me, well, how does that compare? And I've actually got a question about that into Dr. McCord, but my own research has indicated that, guess what? Nrf2 actually activates those sirtuins also, and has a similar effect upon the mitochondria in the cell. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes back with, but I can tell you, by virtue of the fact that he's focusing his research on Nrf2 and not NAD, tells me where he really thinks that the most important emphasis should be placed. Optimend, we like to talk, it stops the pain. It puts the fire of inflammation out. We can talk a lot about how that happens. Fundamentally, we take a molecule, tetrahydrocurcumin, that has been proven to downregulate inflammatory cytokines. If only the body could use it effectively, and we make sure it can by wrapping it in a molecule of cyclodextrin, that's that DexKey technology, and allowing it to safely make its way through the gut, through the stomach acids, and safely into the intestines, where it can be metabolized and sent throughout the body wherever that inflammation is occurring. And if any of you have not tried this yet, this is a product that if you have something that you're feeling is bothering you, an ache and a pain because you've been out gardening, because you've been out playing football, because you've been coaching people that play football like Stu does or whatever it is, you'll notice a difference with Optimit. Link is a superstar. All of our products are superstars, but we talk about the gut-brain connection. And if there's two things you want to take care of in your life, the gut is one and the brain's another. And you can't really help one without helping the other. And one of the best foundational molecules to help you attend to both is butyric acid. Before we started this company, I knew nothing about butyric acid. In fact, I'm kind of embarrassed that I was so ignorant and didn't know anything about this, because when I found out about the importance of butyric acid and how it can create new brain cells, how it can heal the stomach, how it's so tied to the microbiome and creating a healthy atmosphere for health in your gut, where 75% of your immune system resides, I thought, man, I have just been shortchanging myself all these years by not having butyric acid. But on the other hand, frankly, until we met Al Zapp, there wasn't really a way to effectively take butyric acid and increase your amounts in your body anyway. So now we have it. We have that missing link is missing no more, and it's the link to real strong health in our lives. We talk about Amora. You can see that model that's on there right now. That's our own Angie Hawthorne. And she can talk to you about her own specific results, but I can tell, talk to anybody who's ever used these products. Again, Trish was talking to me today about whether Amora, and specifically the toner, would be good on hair. Now, how many of you think that that's an appropriate question to ask me as to whether the toner might be good on hair? I'm like, Trish, I've known you for a long time, and I know you asked that question in all sincerity, but I cannot tell you I have personal experience with how I can tell you it makes the skin look pretty good. But what it does on hair, I'm gonna have to leave it up to you. I hope they show a report back and let us know. We mentioned Arrow. Arrow has also been formulated to take advantage of epigenetic ingredients to increase your energy, help your mitochondria. Actually, number one, increase the number of mitochondria, those little power factories, those little power packs in your cells. We can increase the number of those. I didn't know that. When I grew up in a small farming town and went to high school, I remember drawing a little picture of a cell and putting mitochondria in there, and I really went for a long time thinking each cell only had one mitochondria. That's not the case. Each cell has a lot of mitochondria, and guess what? You can increase the number of mitochondria, which is a good thing. And you can recharge, you can energize the mitochondria that you have. You can turn bad fat cells into good fat cells. You might think that there's no such thing, but there are good fat cells and there are bad fat cells. And we have ingredients that can help them, that will recruit the bad fat cells into good fat cells. Isn't that amazing? I mean, it sounds like it's craziness, but the science is there. We can help you regulate your blood sugar levels, so you don't have those cravings cravings for carbs and things that, frankly, the food companies are designing so that they will have an epigenetic effect. Guess what? Fast food, high carb diets, all those things, they also have an epigenetic effect upon you and upon me. And that epigenetic effect is to cause us to crave more and more of these empty calories, these products that taste really good, which is why we like them so much. And they provide us with sugar and salt and fat, all those things that parts of our brain really like. But those same parts of the brain that really like that, guess what else that they really like? It really likes cocaine. It really likes heroin. It really likes all those things that hit the pleasure centers. And really what they do, I wouldn't say the brain likes it, but what they do is they disguise themselves as things that the brain likes. And they push these buttons called pleasure centers to release dopamine and serotonin and these other neurotransmitters. They only do it for a specified period of time, and then they jack you up and then they let you down and they create an addiction. And Arrow helps you overcome that. In fact, they are epigenetic, high-tech tools, deal with what the fast food companies and others are trying to do to make you fat and addicted to their food. these are powerful tools. And by the way, as Diana will point out, genomics and Nerve2 also to help us fight addictions and not only the effects of those addictions, but the addictions themselves. So we've talked a lot about, what is actives, who is actives. Who is actives? Well, it's Rajesh Durbal, who's a triple amputee and an Ironman triathlete. It's Christina Godoy, who's here seen receiving her $100,000 check upon hitting A16. It's Marco Demaro, who's a famous European and Latin singer and movie star. You might recognize Mama Coco. She is the real Mama Coco, who is the movie Coco was based upon, the old grandmother. She calls our products her medicine, which is kind of fun. It's our own Mr. Stu Carvalho here showing, presenting at a group on Valentine's Day in Japan a couple of years ago. And it's also Nacho Libre. Actually, that's my granddaughter, Tess, who is dressed up as Nacho Libre and will probably never forgive her parents for, number one, dressing her up like that, and number two, taking a picture for people like me to show to others. But at the end of the day, we really are. Because no matter what else we've got going on, no matter what else we are a composite of all the people that join us and all the people that you introduce us to all the time. And I say this all the time, but our absolute best product is you and the people that become affiliated with us every single day. And I'm totally okay with that because there's nobody else I'd love to have it represent us than each of you. So I tell people I'm a recovering lawyer, which is true. And you can tell because once I get started, sometimes I never take a breath. So I'm going to take a breath here and I'm going to stop. And if anybody has any particular questions or things they'd like to say, we can entertain those now for the next few minutes.
I had a question.
Good. Okay, go ahead.
I had arrow here and I'm looking at the portions of the ingredients. Like for example, I don't have my glasses. Sodium has 50 milligrams, kind of 1% of DW. These portions, chromium, magnesium, all those are based on the daily basis need of a person needing vitamin minerals supplementation every day?
No, not necessarily. Some of these ingredients don't have recommended daily, they don't have RDAs. They don't have recommended daily amounts. So chromium, for example, is a mineral, an essential mineral. But chromium picolinate, which is in there, is not for the purpose of nutrition. It's for the purpose of what it does there is, don't get me wrong, it can serve as a source, as one of your sources of chromium. But that particular form of chromium in the picolinate form actually helps to regulate blood sugar. So that's the reason it's in there, as opposed to being purely there for nutritional purposes. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
David, I have a question. Phil Collins here.
Hi, Phil.
I just had somebody ask me about what does this do with I have high blood pressure. What is it going to do to me? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's been a pretty common question. People who have high blood pressure are often concerned about anything that's a stimulant, right? And they're usually pretty careful with how they respond to caffeine and how they consume caffeine. I can tell you that number one, people should pay attention to how their body feels. Guarana, which is the primary source of caffeine, is a much more mild release type of caffeine. It actually has kind of a time-controlled aspect or time release aspect, I think is the right way to say it. And so most people don't notice a jolt. But I would say, in the case of someone like you, I would take a half of a serving and just see how you do. We've had people who have high blood pressure who have noticed that it doesn't do anything. Some people have actually said it's helped normalize their blood pressure, which is interesting. Especially, that's probably more due to them losing weight than the actual ingredients themselves. But I would simply suggest that you try it and see how your body responds. But there's nothing in there that's going to have a strong effect that's going to offset your high blood pressure medication or anything like that.
Dave, I have a question.
Hi, Johnny. How you doing, man?
Doing well, thank you. What is the maximum amount of Optimin that a person can take? I do have a daughter that's got, as a result of a pill that my wife took for morning sickness, that it's affecting her limbs, rheumatoid type arthritis, and sometimes she just gets laid out and can't even get up. So what would be the maximum amount of Optimin that you could take per day?
Well, yeah, the safety data is surprisingly strong. It's actually quite difficult to overdose on Optimin. You'd probably choke on taking too many capsules before you'd have any type of bad experience, negative reaction. On that note, however, Dr. Patel has recommended that most people, confine themselves to 3 or 4 capsules, three times a day, and see how that does. Now, I will say, in regards to the inflammation, remember, if people can take it together with, say, genomics and Link, all of them work together on sometimes the same pathways and sometimes different cellular pathways to reduce inflammation. I'd also say, Johnny, that even though people often want to avoid NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, that turmeric curcumin has been shown to work effectively with ibuprofen, so you don't have to take as much. So she can kind of experiment with those, but she can feel comfortable that she's not going to, she's not going to have an overdose of turmeric.
Johnny, on that note as well, just to let you know, there was a lady in Japan. She had the same thing, rheumatoid arthritis, and one of our leaders gave her a bottle of Optimin. In 2 days, she caught the train 3 hours one way to come and meet us because she was in tears. All she did was take 3 Optimin in the morning and 3 at night for 2 days, and the pain in her fingers and her hands were gone. And so she wanted to know firsthand what was in this Optimin. Was there something magical about it or anything? And we told her, no, it's not. And so we kind of explained to her what Optimin is, and she couldn't believe the simplicity of the ingredients. But what got her was that Silox Dex key that our Optimin, and the tetrahydrocurcumin is wrapped in, that gets it to where it needs to go, and releases the tetrahydrocurcumin as needed. So I know firsthand from a lady in Japan that rheumatoid arthritis is something painful, but something that Optimin did help her with. Now, everybody's different. Like I said, she took 3 in the morning and 3 at night, and she was about maybe 60 years old and, a little slender lady. So everybody's different.
Thanks, Stu. Any other questions from anyone?
Hi, yes. Good afternoon. My name is Noemi from El Paso, Texas.
Hi, Noemi.
I'm sorry I can't put my camera on. What's my question? Yeah, it's about my daughter. She's 19 and she has this inflammation on the ovaries. So what would be the recommendation on her inflammation and the ovary? As a matter of fact, the question goes more to the feminine hormonal system. It's included in all these products.
Well, I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV at times. But what I can recommend is that I would start her out with the trifecta, the genomics, Link, and Optimin. I would probably double up initially on the recommended dose out of the gate and just see how she responds, and go from there. And then if you have a specific, if you'd like to email me at dbrown@actives.com, And
Okay, thank you.
with a little bit more explanation about the specific condition, I will then pass that along to Dr. Earl or one of our doctors and see what their response is. How's that?
That is awesome. Thank you so much. I will.
Any other questions?
Yes,
I
there
think
was,
that- Oh, hi,
Okay.
Dan. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, me? Okay,
Please.
great, thank you. So Stu doesn't like being in the kitchen. For me, it's my flat hair for pickleball. Anyway, we were talking about that earlier. So I have a question. I have a girlfriend, her mother has tongue cancer. So she is on a feeding tube. I do have her on we just put her on the Optimund and the Lynx. And she started to get a little nausea, but she had that before. It went away, and now she had it again. So I just had her do it at those 2 at night. My other question is, should I put her on the genomics with cancer?
Well, I could. I think where you're going there is questions about NRF2 activation in the past and whether they are going to actually increase the carcinogenic activity of cells. Right? Is that where you're going, Diane?
Yeah, I know. There was a controversy. I wasn't sure. Some you do, some you don't. Yes, go ahead and address that.
Again, not a doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to check into it. I have had recent conversations with Dr. McCord saying, we have had this concern about, whether kind of unregulated or increased levels of NRF2, there does seem to be some information out there as to whether that actually increases the amount of cancer cells. And that, what he said was he didn't necessarily poo-poo that study. He just said that was a very, that applied to a very specific type of cancer in which there was just this drastic, like I mentioned, having your dimmer switch stuck on high where NRF2 production was just crazy. In this case, caused by the cancer cells themselves. And so he did not indicate that it would not be, that we should not give it to people that have cancer. Now, as you know, we don't make claims.
No.
We don't tell people that, we don't get their hopes up unnecessarily that this is going to be the end all, product. But what we do know about virtually every health condition is that there's a component of oxidative stress and inflammation in almost everything. And that if you can reduce those two conditions, it helps the body go a long way in its fight in whatever it's facing. And on that note, I saw something in the chat regarding any research or testimonials regarding, say, Alzheimer's. And what I would do, again, legally speaking, and this is where I'll put my lawyer's hat on, we can't make claims regarding diseases. And frankly, even if the research is there, we still can't make claims regarding diseases. So what I urge people to do is simply to Google. You could go to pubmed.gov if you want, that's fine. And pubmed.gov is a repository of, frankly, almost all research out there regarding almost anything. But you don't even have to go to that extent. You can just Google. If you want to Google butyric acid and Alzheimer's, I guarantee you that you will find something. How can I guarantee you? Because I've done it. All right. If you want to Google butyric acid and the brain, do it. If you want to do, same thing with curcumin and whatever. I would just, start there. And there's a lot that you can learn on your own. Any other questions?
What about the new, that the new weight of COVID and now people that even taking genomics, they are responding a little different because I feel there is not the same of the COVID-19. Well,
obviously the variant is not the same as COVID-19, it's slightly different, right? And what we do know, Coco, is that all of these respiratory viruses, not just COVID-19, and why do they call it COVID-19? Because there are other COVID variants that were discovered in other years. That was COVID-19 because it was discovered in 2019. But what they've known about these various coronaviruses, as well as other respiratory viruses, is they all act kind of the same. At the end of the day, what that virus wants to do is inject itself and attach itself to your cell. And once it does that, it's going to take over the mRNA in your cell and it's going to go crazy. It's going to duplicate. And what happens is, it's not so much that your body can't defend it, it chokes down your body's defenses, it just overwhelms them. It grows so fast that the body can't keep up. And so then what the body does, it says, oh, okay, I'm just going to burn this sucker out. And it puts all of these inflammatory cytokines on high and just jams that control as high as it can and creates tremendous inflammation. And what actually ends up hurting you and then ultimately killing you is the body's own response to the virus because it's trying to get rid of it. So what you want to be able to do is minimize that little virus's ability to attach itself to your cell and replicate. Okay, how do you do that? By keeping your immune system strong, by down-regulating and saying, even when the body wants to crank up the immune system, crank up the inflammatory response, having those cytokines be down-regulated, which is what both Link, which is what all of them do. Genomics, Optimend, and Link do together. And remember, the one thing about NRF2 that's been proven is that it helps prevent that little virus from attaching itself to the cell. It might not prevent all of them, but if it prevents some of them, that's just fewer cells that can then just replicate. So again, I would never say that that people should not get vaccinated. I would never say people shouldn't wear masks. That's up to you. What I will say is that people should take steps to protect themselves against this and other similar health threats. And one of the ways to do that is to take the trifecta. Really important tools. Fair enough? Okay.
And then because there's 4 years in Mexico, and I know there is more doctors that they're already using the product for the 4 years, there is no any like maybe studies that are doing over there, because here is brand new, so really we are not approaching that area and trying to. But I remember that was even it's in the website that was studies going on with breast cancer in Mexico, and then I think that stopped, and I don't know if that keep going or not, but there is no things like that we are not aware in Spanish, because obviously.
Yeah, there are currently no Spanish studies completed. The University of Oaxaca was very excited about going down the route of a breast cancer study. And then I don't remember if there was an administration change or something, but something happened and they had to stop. They still remain very interested in doing a study on genomics. And it's kind of in limbo right now. It hasn't been, they haven't said they're not going to do it, but we don't know exactly which direction. They're thinking about maybe taking it in a direction that's not breast cancer related. I can tell you that Pathways Biosciences continues to do studies. In fact, one of the things, they did a study on one of their formulas, PB125, but at the end of the day, their studies are all about NRF2. And as I've spoken with both Dr. McCord and Brooks Hybertson, who is their president, I said, even though you may have done it on a slightly different formula, the fact that you are doing it, that the study results all relate to NRF2, doesn't that mean that even if genomics isn't the particular product being studied, that because it is also a potent NRF2 activator, that those same results apply to genomics? And they said, yes, absolutely. In fact, they're in the process of doing some additional studies specifically on genomics, or what they call PB123. And so anyway, and then the other thing we're working on, Coco, with doctors both in Mexico and in the United States, are not full-blown scientific clinical studies, but more observational studies, so that as they take patients in, that they keep track of some things that are going on with their patient population, and so that we can talk more about that. That's that's it's still in a very early stages, but it's something that we're making a little bit of progress on in both countries. So we'll keep you apprised as we get more and more information. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
I've had a few people ask me, I know that the products are mostly made up of, things that our body already creates and things like that, more natural. But I've had a lot of people asking me if there's any particular, like, they're taking a certain medication, can they take it with their medication? Is there a place that either we can find that information, or is it pretty much something that really wouldn't be harmful with any medication?
What we know, Melanie, is that for the most part, what you're worried about is whether they're metabolized in the same organ that a drug is. And so many drugs are metabolized in the kidney, some are metabolized in the liver, and you don't want them necessarily to be around each other at the same time. What we don't know, we don't have any contraindications so far that we know of in terms of common meds. Mostly because they are metabolized in different places. As I broached this question to both Dr. McCord and more recently to Dr. Earl, by virtue, it's not just that, for example, it's not just that they're natural ingredients. For example, St. John's wort is an herb that frankly cancer patients should not take. Why? Because it goes to the same cell receptor as their chemotherapy does. And so if St. John's wort gets to that cell receptor before the chemo does, chemo can't work. And so there can be cases where one is not indicated for the other, but so far there doesn't seem to be anything that we're aware of. We were a little concerned, not concerned, but we had a question regarding people that had transplants. Because many of those people are on immunosuppressants. They want to suppress their immune system. And if we're making the immune system more active, does that mean it's going to kick out these transplants? But that doesn't seem to be a concern anymore either, that this modulation is occurring as opposed to creating this big upswell. And so, so far so good. Again, as we find out about those things, we'll absolutely let people know if there's some things that we think they should do, okay?
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sure.
And then David, there was one question in the chat. Hugo asked if the products were all natural.
Well, not all natural. Butyric acid actually utilizes a natural process to create butyric acid. But at the end of the day, it's not naturally occurring in ghee or butter like it. I mean, they're not making butter and then skimming the butter off and making it. They are creating it in a lab with a natural type of process. But I wouldn't necessarily say that means it's natural. But what I can say is that in all of those cases, they are bioidentical to things that are found naturally in nature. And we take that very seriously so that we don't have any toxic ingredients, toxic methods of production, or anything like that. And the butyric acid is really the only one, I will say. Other than that, though, everything is natural. And even that, you could argue that butyric acid is natural because of the way it's created, but technically speaking, with the legal term, it would not be considered natural. But for our body's purposes, yeah, I think we can safely say they're all natural. How is that for a confusing answer?
And then Shannon is raising their hand. So Shannon, go ahead and you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Shannon. We see that your hand is raised, but you are muted. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Oh,
Well,
there it is. Sorry. This is my first time. Okay. I do know that since I've been taking the trifecta for just barely over a month now, I am off my arthritis medicine. I no longer have any arthritis pain in my hands, my feet. I have, your chronic stuff that you get here and there for doing too much. But I also know that it hasn't made any side effect whatsoever within my other medications. I have to take gabapentin for my nerve and neuropathy pain. I can say that that's actually, I don't know if it's helping it heal better, or what, but I haven't had any bad problems with any of my medications that I've taken whatsoever. And I actually feel great.
That's
I've
awesome.
had 30 surgeries. So for the first time in my life, I feel really good.
Well, that's great, Shannon. Let me introduce you all to our new cover girl, Shannon, for the company. She's going to be representing all the testimonials out there. That's an awesome story. Thank you. I can speak to my father's own personal experience. He suffers from some neuropathy at the age of 88, and he says, so funny. Haven't you found that sometimes your family members are the ones that are the most difficult to talk to about the products or get them to take them consistently? And he says, son, I don't know if it's your products or not, but my neuropathy seems to be a lot better. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure it's our products, but keep going. Whether you think it is or not, I don't really care. I'm just glad that it's working for you. But that's those are great stories to hear. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour.
There's one last question. Yeah, there's one last question on the chat. Maria asked, my son who has heart failure and Becker's muscular dystrophy with an LVAD heart pump is currently taking Protandim Tri-Synergizer. Will the 3 products you mentioned be able to replace those products?
I'm sorry, what was the other part?
She's wondering if our products will be able to replace the current product they're taking, which is Protandim Tri-Synergizer.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know what they call their Tri-Synergizer, to tell you the truth. But someone texted me today that I had met for the first time maybe 10 years ago. And she said, David, please tell me that you're still taking Protandim. Because with everything going on in the pandemic and everything, I just think it's really important. And I said to her, I said, well, yeah, I was taking Protandim every day until 2017 when I was introduced to a much more potent product. And so no, I can't reassure you that I'm taking Protandim anymore. Good product, but kind of like Admiral Winters said, he doesn't want his Navy pilots flying around in a fighter that's 20 years old, and which represented the best of the science back then. He wants them flying around in a fighter that represents the best of the science now. And that's how I feel with genomics. And I can tell you that without knowing, I think that her son could safely take the trifecta. I actually think that they would be very beneficial. Short answer is yeah, I think you probably replace Protandim Tri-Synergizer, whatever that is, with our products. Because I can tell you that although I would never say anything bad about Protandim, because hey, it was our baby. We shared that with the world. But that baby is old now. Now we have a new baby that's younger and smarter and brighter. And we like that child better than, no, I'm just kidding. We have some, I have 4 kids and they're always saying, which one do you like best? I would never say which one I like best, but I can tell you that, well, when it comes to this, if I'm stuck and broken down with my car and I need somebody with muscle, I'm going to call my son who's 6 feet tall and 190 pounds of muscle, and I'm not going to call my daughter who's 5'3" and 110 pounds. Okay, I'm going to use the right child for the right purpose, and I would use genomics for the right purposes, and it just simply represents the best that science has to offer. And I can also tell you that the rest of those other products that form the Synergizer do not have the level of science that Protandim has, nor do they have the level of science that our products have. And you might say those are pretty bold statements, but I'm a pretty bold guy. And so that's why I feel comfortable making them. So I think you can take them comfortably and expect great results.
I have a question.
Sorry, no questions from A16s tonight.
So after hearing all the questions, how do we prioritize the business side of what we have and put the product that obviously it's amazing and all the science that we have and all the testimonies that we're getting as our source, but not our focus? I just think that, as an A16, we have so much more than the products itself as a company. But I feel like a lot of people are putting 100% effort in the product instead of the business. So how do we transition for those that are probably thinking, well, I do want to do a business. I do need the financial side. What's on the business side more than the product side, more than the science?
You know, Christine, that's a great question. I think I would basically reply by saying, you know what? We often don't talk about the business as being a product. It is one of our products. It's one of our best products. And like our other products, it's been scientifically proven to work. It has been developed over years of research so that that product, the compensation plan, the ability to make residual income is just as borne out in science as the supplement products are, or the skincare products are. And I think it's really important to know that, that the foundation of our business is built upon rock solid, proven research, including the business. And if you really want to make a difference in somebody else's life, yes, you can share with them the products, the supplements, one product at a time, and get into chapter and verse on the science if you'd like, and that's fine. But I tell you what, you'll have a much bigger impact on the world if you build the business, which only comes by sharing it with lots of people, as opposed to just focusing in on one particular ingredient or one particular product or one particular benefit. I think that's what our A16 is really telling us. If you want to have this tremendous impact, don't forget about the fact that we are not a research institution. We are not a nonprofit organization. We are a company that is creating tens of millions of dollars in revenue. We are creating A16s, A15s, A14s, people with their own businesses in countries around the world, because number one, they said, you know what? I need this for my family. And these other things are simply tools in the quiver, arrows in the quiver, tools in the toolbox to help you accomplish that. So I think that's the answer, don't you, Christina, to remember that's a really important product.
That was my product.
Yeah.
When I got the invitation from Ryan, I trusted the science. I trusted that, therefore it was going to be tons of testimonies. But what I introduced to market to the people that joined me was the business product. And obviously, most of them are high ranks in the company already. So I think, as you said, we can definitely help way more people sharing the business product, because they're going to go to way more people that are going to consume our products, and our science is going to expand way more faster than only creating one testimony. So again, me, the rebel, I had to ask the odd question.
I think that, we started with a discussion about what Actives is, who Actives is, and what did we talk about? We talked about the business. We talked about tens of millions of dollars in revenue. We talked about expanding throughout the world. And what's really, really interesting about Actives, the Actives company, is that the Actives company is comprised of all of these little smaller companies that you guys start, and you're all interested in the same thing. You want to make money. You want to provide for your family. You want to have security and safety. And every business needs a product, right? You need to have something that people need. And so we have it and you have it. And you have this wonderful opportunity to share that with the world at a time when you're the first ones in, baby. And it's great to get started and build something, just like Christina has. Christina was able to get in, take advantage of the timing. And the good news is, just because she made it over the fence, she made it into the A16 land, that wonderful territory that not too many people have occupied so far. Guess what? It is still great, unspoiled, virgin territory where lots of other people can go. And if you want to do it, hey, people ask me all the time, do I think this will work? Do I think this will work? I said, I don't know. Do what the A16s do. I would do what they do. And that, don't talk to me about what's going to help your business grow. Talk to Christina Godoy. Talk to Martine Lita. Talk to other people and what they're going to tell you is share it with other people. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Right, Christina? Go ahead.
That's right. Thank you.
Something else.
No. Yes, no. No, I was gonna text you privately, but now that you insist, um, you took a company from 0 to $250 million, I think, with a similar science, with a similar product. Did the leaders at the time where we are, were that focused on product and science and testimonies as well? Or they were like, no, let's just prioritize the business?
That's a great question. And it depended on the person. I can tell you one person who's a chiropractor. He was in love with the science, and his initial presentations were all about the science. You couldn't get him to shut up about oxidative stress. He was very colorful. He was a great presenter, but his presentations would just go on forever. And at the end of the day, the people that were there, if they were still awake, they'd be like, whoa, I can never, ever, ever repeat what he just did. I guess I'll just give up. Maybe I'll become a customer. So we got lots of customers. And then at the end of the day, when he basically reduced his presentation to say, you know what, oxidative stress is bad. We reduce oxidative stress. Now let's talk about the business. His business grew a lot faster. I can tell you about a woman. She loves the products, okay? She doesn't get caught up, because the other thing you can get caught up in, okay, is details about the products. Or you can decide, I want to be a compensation plan guru. I want to know every single thing about the compensation plan. And both sides can be, can slow you down. What she used to say is, listen, these products are awesome. I love the way that they make me feel. I don't know much about the compensation plan. All I know is that the more I share it with people, the bigger the checks are that they send to me. That's basically it. Now, she was kind of understating it because she did know more about it. But your point is well taken. When they focused on building the business, even the people that love the science, okay, they found that now their reach, their influence was drastically expanded. And so I do think that we sometimes get too caught up in the wonderful aspects of the research and the science, and yet we never kind of get around to saying, oh, by the way, don't you want to have this in your life? Don't you want to have it in the lives of you and your family and all their families? And by the way, yes, if you don't have money, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Well, if you have your health and you don't have any money, a lot of people aren't very happy either. And so you really do need to find a way. And I think most of us, if we say what attracted us to this business was the opportunity to build a business, to increase our income, to increase our reach, to get on stage and be recognized for rank advancement. All of those things are great. But if you don't build the business, a lot of those other goals that you have won't be accomplished. And I think that's where that's the advice and direction that our first A16 is giving us. And I think it's great advice.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Angie, back to you.
All right. I think that ends our calls, our questions. So I'm going to stop the recording and we're going to go ahead and do our raffle.